Hi, and welcome to the SEO podcast, Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. My name is Chris Burris, owner of eWebStyle.
I am Charles Lewis, your Internet Marketing Specialist.
Do not forget your title, man. You gotta keep that title in there. You are listening to the most popular Internet Marketing podcast on iTunes. That is because of you all. Thank you so much. You're tuning in to podcast number 261. And the last podcast of 2014. We are doing Part 2 of our 2014
of our end of the year review.
Absolutely. As always, except for this time, there's a tip from the previous podcast. And the tip for the previous podcast is go back and listen to it.
Yeah, because we covered a lot.
Boom, a lot of information. We met with a client who listens to our podcast double speed, and we told him in person, you're probably not going to listen to that in double speed because
we're covering a lot.
A whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot to cover today. We're going to get into it. We covered the first half of this year's podcast last week, so this week we're going to cover the second half of this year's podcast. We got about 18 of them, I think it is, to go through, and so put your seatbelts on. Stick with us.
A lot of points. Remember, we are broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and we are your friendly local neighborhood top position snatchers, where our mantra is don't be a douche.
It is not a good look.
If you can right now, tweet and use a hashtag thing.
What you see behind
and
us?
do
Make sure
that.
You tweet us hashtag SEO podcast. This is number 261. Be sure to tag us in it at Best SEO Podcast at eWebStyle. That way we can follow you back and do all of our social networking stuff.
Absolutely. If this is the first time you've listened to this podcast,
welcome.
Go listen to the previous podcast. This is part 2. You cannot start in part. Well, go ahead. Go ahead and listen. If you've listened to this podcast before, you can do us one small favor in a couple of different ways, and that is write us a review. The first way you could do that is go onto our G Plus local page, and we've made it incredibly easy for you to get to that page. All you have to do is go to e-webstyle.com/Google
Plus
and
/Google Plus
and
/G Plus.
By the way, I keep saying and. You don't want to go to and all of those. You want to go to or all of those.
Yeah.
Or
G Plus. Yeah, that's where we go.
You are not supposed to break that train of thought. The other thing you can do has 3 steps. You just go onto iTunes, create an account, write a review. If you make that review 5 stars, or if you make it anything else, go ahead and send us an email, podcast@e-webstyle.com. Let us know you submitted it. We'll read it on air. We're probably going to read it on air anyway. You could write a review on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/eWebstyle. And of course, you can figure out where to write a review there. That's easy. Stitcher is now behind. It's still stuck at 251. We're trying to figure that out. Whatever you do, don't go to Stitcher and complain about the fact that Stitcher's not updated. We've never submitted anything to Stitcher. There's something wrong with the feed. We got to figure out how to fix the feed. It has nothing to do with us not liking Stitcher. In fact, we like Stitcher.
Yeah, we love Stitcher. They got a link on our homepage. That's how much we like Stitcher.
Exactly. So if you're interested in writing a review for us, go to e-webstyle.com, find the Stitcher link, go there and click the review button, and you can write a review. So and also share the show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Share it on your Facebook page, share it on your G Plus page, share it,
Share it with those who may be in the same position as you, who are managing their site. Maybe they're trying to get their ranking up and could benefit from this information.
Share it with anyone who's currently getting screwed by some other SEO customer. I'll tell you, 80% of our customers
can come from somebody
sit
else.
out in our conference room have gotten. So one definition of screwed is I have a web guy, I can never reach him. Another definition is I've paid these guys for 12 months and nothing has happened. Yeah. That's not a good look. That's share our podcast with them.
Douchey.
That's like double douchey. That's horrible. If you're a PHP expert or a WordPress extraordinaire gal, call us and submit an audio resume, 713-510-7846. You can get a free website on our website, e-webstyle.com. Yeah, I slurred that all together, e-webstyle.com.
I didn't know dot had an L in it.
And we haven't even had our celebratory beer yet for Friday. So go to eWebstyle.com. You'll find the free website analysis. And now it's... Did I move Algo Cutter? Isn't Algo supposed to be up there? That's kind of weird. Right. Anyway, so now for our favorite segment, the Algorithm Cataclysm. Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
So,
you
so
gotta-
dig
you
this.
gotta
So
tune in.
remember a few podcasts ago, we talked about Google flirting with the idea of rolling out buy now buttons.
Okay, right,
Yep.
right.
So they're a step closer. And so that's at our algo cat because they changed. It was going to be on the shopping page. Now they're considering rolling out buy now buttons in the SERP results.
They're gonna make a lot of money. They are.
And
gonna
so,
make
and
a
they're trying to
lot of
compete with
money.
Amazon, but the difference is, unlike Amazon, Google isn't planning on warehousing and storing all of these products and shipping them out. They're just going to create deals with third parties and
Take a
those
little
buy
bit of
now
scratch.
buttons. Take a little scratch and let them handle the logistics.
So what you're saying is,
It's going to be a paid ad.
unlike Amazon,
We're
they're
gonna
going to
be
be
paid.
profitable on day one.
Exactly. And so what I'm curious to see is if they're going to select them based off of some sort of algorithm, right?
Right.
Which one of these should show, or if it's going to be a new feature in AdWords where I can just have a buy now button and pay for that click.
Pay an extra 30 cents or $5 or whatever.
Whatever
for it. Yeah.
Google decides to charge me for
Yeah.
that buy
Interesting. Or percentage.
or percentage.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, that's kind of cool. That will definitely change how the SERP page looks.
Yep. And the reason it's cat because we don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah.
So if it is algorithm based, then it's definitely cataclysm worthy, right?
And we consider any changes,
Any changes
on
to
the
the search result page, yeah.
the cataclysm, because they used to have authorship images, now they don't.
Oh, it's
all
changed
that.
so much, dude. Like they
How-
went from authorship avatars to the +1 button is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Remember that? Now they've added this site is mobile friendly. That's
Right.
there. Like
Right.
search results change frequently.
Man.
Cataclysm.
All right, so I have only one piece of news. There is more news
Yeah, I got some news,
around.
too.
This one is T-Mobile has to pay back $90 million for fake charges. It's just amazing. So apparently this is charges that show up on your bill. And how often do you think you need to check your cell phone bill? Never.
Apparently-
There's the service. I pay for the service every month. It's maybe even assigned to my credit card, and we
Yeah, it's
should be good to
auto-debited.
go. No. Yeah, check your bill because they had to return
back a whole bunch
$90
of money.
million.
Yeah. So.
Well, you got a little bit of
We
news.
got some more news as well. This is important for all my developers out here, guys who are using WordPress or familiar with it enough. If you use WordPress, then you already should probably have a better understanding of brute force attacks and things like that. Because WordPress sites, since they are
Yep.
20% of all the sites on the internet, they tend to be under attack frequently. And this latest news is verification of that. So Soap.ru, Russian company, targeted the Rev Slider premium plugin used across the web on a whole bunch of sites. Anyway, that plugin is vulnerable. So if indeed you're using a WordPress site, first off, change your slider plugin if you're using Rev Slider and update WordPress. They just rolled out 4.0.1. Upgrade to that, change your sliders, change your plugins, change your passwords, and update everything. and you should be good. Dig this though. Here's the news. Because of Soak and because of that vulnerability, Google ended up blocking thousands. It was like 100,000 WordPress sites got blacklisted and 13,000 domain names were also blacklisted because of that one vulnerability.
Wow.
So clean your site up and be safe.
Yeah, that's always a pain. One of the challenges. Yeah.
It sucks. I've been hacked. It's not a good. It's
Just
not a
leave
good deal.
WordPress alone, please. All right, so we do have a review. You notice there is no tear tattoo. It's actually referenced in the review. This review is from Dustin De Torres.
De Torres.
And it is a
5 stars
review. Each week I learn something new. Thanks for putting together a humorous, intelligent, and interesting podcast. Hopefully with this review, you'll be able to remove the teardrop tattoo from your face. Wow, it's gone.
This review prevented it.
Yeah. So I wish it was that easy for my girlfriend to remove her lower back tat of an oversized butterfly soaring through space. Yes, really. So when you say lower back butterfly soaring through space, is space a euphemism for... Anyway. All right, Dustin. Thank you so much for the
To infinity and beyond.
Did that just come out of the
Out of space,
out
man.
of the
It came out of
cocoon?
space.
Just came out of the cocoon.
Man, punch in
cool.
the face to you, Mr. De Torres. Appreciate your review, man.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so that is the potatoes of our podcast. We've got to get into the meat.
You want to get in that, or you want to get into the question?
Oh yeah, we got a question.
Yeah,
so
I got
we're
a
gonna
question.
call this question part of the meat.
Part
today.
of the meat, yeah. This is So dig this question. This is from Craig Mount over at Pikes Peak SEO, another SEO firm.
All right.
When they ask us questions. So he says, "Hey guys, I really enjoyed the show this week, and I have a question regarding location." He says, which I know was a few shows ago. That's what's up. If you are a business looking at branding your service and have a relatively short sales cycle, like picking up the phone and setting up an appointment, is it better to rank A for organic search results or B in the Google Maps results with Google reviews, with G+ reviews? Craig Mount,
Let me take the real quick answer to that.
great question.
Yep. The real quick answer is C,
Both.
PPC,
Oh.
organic,
And local.
And local.
Yeah, we try to conquer the search result page. And not really to waste money or anything like that, but studies show that when you have multiple listings on one search page, your click results go higher. Not
Yep.
your click cost. People aren't necessarily clicking your paid ad, but they're more in tune to click your organic ad because they
Also,
see a paid
yeah.
ad. It's amazing how that works. Answer your question though, Craig, I would say it really depends on the nature of your business. I understand you're a local business, but if you're like, let's say, a local shoe store or restaurant or something like that, then people probably won't come from great distances to get there. And
Right.
so in that case, Google Maps with reviews is probably your best bet.
Yeah.
However, maybe you provide a service all over your city and still a local business, like a plumbing, electrician, or AC repair, or something like that. Then of course you want that natural listing.
Yeah.
But you also want those reviews as well because you're B2C sort of situation. And so similar to what Chris was saying in regards to the C, he's absolutely right. You want to go after both of those listings. One of the
Yep.
things we do when we do SEO is we go after that local and that local listing, the local and organic listing
Yep.
at the same time because they're equally important.
And PPC.
And the PPC
The
one.
three. You know, the theory is that when people see you three places on the homepage, you've got instant credibility.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have a brand that's plastered on vans and billboards across your entire city, that's one way to recoup from that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interestingly enough, if you have a brand that's that strong in your local area or nationwide, in either case, then you don't need to spend as much money on PPC, although it still does have a positive ROI, so do it.
Yeah.
Actually, what I mean to say is the presence of the PPC ad doesn't necessarily increase your organic click-through rate.
Because
you've
you're
got a
already
big
branded.
brand.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've got the brand credibility, so you don't need it. You don't need it on that search result page. If you don't have that brand credibility, more listings create that credibility and get you higher click-through rates on all three, on PPC, on organic, and on local.
Want to give a quick punch in the face to Worldwide Call Centers. They hit us up on Twitter at WW Call Centers. They said at eWebStyle, your podcast is great. We
Thank
know.
you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Hey, Craig, too. Punch in the face to
punch
you
your
for
face
that
to you,
question.
Craig. Appreciate your
Great.
question, man.
Cool. All right. So that's the that
the
was the.
Potatoes and the
Isn't
and
there
the
like an
small-
aperitif that comes between the appetizer, the potato? Anyway,
What'd you call it?
aperitif. So, you know,
Yeah, I
most
don't know.
food-related stuff is French, so just add some ooh la la, and
Gotta add that on
and
there.
that's in between. All right. So podcast 240.
So, okay. Podcast 240.
contagious.
We talked about content marketing and tips, and we covered several things from there, including using social media widgets to increase engagement. And so, when you consider all my WordPress users out there, when you use social media widgets, they do increase engagement. That's like having share buttons and plus buttons and things like that, and giving people the ability to like your page from your page without necessarily leaving and going to Facebook to like your page. We also talked about content marketing tips and tricks, and more importantly, the group mentality of SEO and the consequences that come with working in a group. And we're really talking content. And so if you have, let's say, multiple people posting articles on your blog, you don't want to suffer any consequences, and by making sure everybody in the group is posting the same way. They're using the same kind of character count, or they're using the same format. We're all going to use bullets. We're all going to use the image. We're all going to use video. We're all going to speak in this tone of voice, this point of
First
view.
person, third person. Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of having one person who's writing a well-written, optimized post, and then somebody else who just blah, all over the page, and then somebody else who's just image heavy. Then you have all these different writing styles, and there's no consistency. You don't want to suffer because of that. And that was podcast 240.
All right, so in 241, we talked about making sure content and graphics communicate together. So we highly recommended that you have custom graphics, custom images, and if you're going to have
use your own.
use your own images. And if you're going to have them, make sure they make sense with the graphics, all right? It's not just about having an image, it's about having an image that makes sense. We also talked about marketing success downfalls. So this is a little odd. I'm actually trying. I don't recall this podcast, so I'm gonna theorize on what we were talking about. If you do really well and you get people to the wrong page,
that's a downfall.
That's a marketing success downfall. We talk about continuity. When they search for certain keywords, they see those keywords in the ad or the organic listing or the local listing. When they click through, they hopefully see those exact same keywords, or at least you impart the exact same message. To not finish that on the web page, the target landing web page, would be a marketing success downfall. And we also talked about relevant marketing testing, getting in there and saying, okay, so I think the page is relevant, but I could change it. I can change it. So I do a little bit of A/B testing. Google makes that pretty easy, and that was podcast 241.
On podcast 242, we covered a couple things, SEO myths. We talked about some content marketing as well, and I think one of the biggest things in regards to the creating a plan for content marketing is what stuck out the most about that. And when you're doing content and you're marketing this content, you must plan, you must strategize. Don't sit at the table and just start writing and it reads good to you and then you post it. Because it's not going to read good to everybody else.
Yeah.
Read it, let somebody else read it, proofread it, schedule some time to go do your research, to gather your links, to gather whatever images and videos and resources you need, then compose it, let somebody else read it. This is part of a strategy. Plan on your follow-up post. What you're going to follow up after that? What other resources can you use? And then you do this every week, and that way you continuously you continually put out great content that's relevant, that matters, and that people will engage with. And that was SEO Podcast 242.
All right, 243, we talked about making sure you're logged into Bing, and I think that was when our algo cat was that Bing will actually give you points and you can earn credits.
Because we broadcasted from the Microsoft Store.
Exactly. So you can earn credits for being logged into Bing and doing searches and playing games,
doing searches. And then the cool thing about it was that those Bing credits, you get points that you can use at the Microsoft Store for like games or new apps and stuff.
I wonder if that's cool. It'd be a good thing to hack if you do. You could hack it and get points and get something. We also
using Bing because you don't want to use Bing.
Shh, hush your mouth. Important. At least we're not at the Microsoft Store when we're saying that. I was there this morning though. Important SEO data points. So what are the things that you should be looking at when you're looking into Google Analytics? Go check out podcast 243 for that. And finally, reading your bounce rate, what it means. We're probably the only company that you will ever hear that says, hey, you know what? A high bounce rate might be a good thing. The reality is, if we can get somebody to your website in the short throw that Craig was talking about, where he's got a short sales cycle, if we can get them to that first page, fill them with confidence, give them the information they need, including the contact information, and they pick up the phone and call and never visit another page.
That's a great bounce rate.
That's a job well done.
Phenomenal bounce rate. Great site, great conversion site.
So that is podcast 243.
On SEO Podcast 244, we talked about content redesign, and we gave out some tips, and we were even recapping what we talked about in regards to the bounce rate, and we talked about reworking some missing information and how all of that works with a content redesign. So starting with bounce rate. If your site does have a high bounce rate, and unlike the example Chris gave, maybe you're not getting high conversions, then something's wrong with your site. And so if you're going to redesign, you need to go figure out where people are bouncing from. What pages are they going to when they finally leave? Why are they leaving? Is your content being read? Are they leaving any comments? Are they liking anything? Are they subscribing? They're not doing any of these things. They're bouncing. So you need to figure out why. And consider that reason why when redesigning a site. So that way you won't redesign and have the same problem that you had prior to redesigning. We also talked about reworking missing information. And so consider this. As you're redesigning your site and you're going through your content, a lot of times links change, or maybe you had intentions on putting an image here and it's not there anymore, or maybe the product has changed, but you haven't updated your site. You don't even offer this anymore, right? And so keep that in mind when you're redesigning as well. Comb through your content. Whatever is updated, great, move it over. Whatever is outdated, update it first, then move it over. And whatever is obsolete, get rid of it. And that was SEO Podcast 244.
All right, in 245, 3 things. Making sure your website supports your type of content, foolproof content writing tips, and editing and proofreading your content. So the theme of that podcast, if you didn't get, was content. Make sure that you've got consistent content, that it has the right voice for your audience. As I mentioned in the previous the podcast that we were just talking about, make sure the images match the content there. Make sure you're proofreading your content. You know, like Charles said, I would add to what Charles said, sleep on it.
Yeah.
Right? Write it. I like the idea of writing it, finding all the supporting stuff, and then coming back, because you're going to reread it when you add that stuff. Sleep on it. Read it one more time.
You probably come and change up everything.
Yeah.
You know,
especially after like you find this video and like, ooh, that piece of information was wrong. Yeah, and that was podcast 245.
On SEO Podcast 246, we talked about SEO improvement tips. And the cool thing about this one, we covered several things, including presenting content in a way that really guides visitors to a conversion, right? And so you have to have a better understanding of your sales process and how that works online. And so that way, when you're optimizing, when you're working on your site, you can guide those visitors down that path. So, for example, if your conversion, would you say, leads to a short form, then a thank you, and then a call, then make that sales process pretty clear on the site. Fill this form out, and we'll be contacting you shortly.
Yeah.
That sort of deal. So that way, when people see it, they're like, hey, I'll fill this form out and I'll get a call. That's what you call making it so your site leads to those conversions. We also talked about SEO improvement tips, and we likely covered some of the basics, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things you can do, like making sure your NAP is consistent, making sure that all of your content is well read and relevant, making sure that your site is spam free and loads up quickly. And those would have been your SEO improvement tips. The last thing we talked about on that one was short URLs, right? And so that's really for sharing. If you want to get maximum shareability for your post, shorten your URLs. Don't go with the long word hyphen word hyphen word hyphen word hyphen word hyphen that WordPress will do. Shorten it and make it easy to read, easy to understand, a description of what this page is about. And they tend to get shared more. And that was SEO Podcast 246.
All right, 247, we talked about action words in titles. So if you're going to actually have...
That's a pro tip. I remember that one.
Yeah, like PPC or even in your description, so that when your listing shows up on the SERP, you actually have the action word. So if your intent is to try and drive them to buy something, have the action word buy. If it's to subscribe, have the action word subscribe. Because you can actually fill out, especially PPC. It's a great place to do it in PPC, because
you can test it.
If you put buy and they're not ready to buy, they will skip your listing and not cost you any money because they're not ready to buy. If you put subscribe and they're like, I never subscribe, so I'm just not even going to go there, save yourself some money.
And on the flip side of that, if you put buy and they do click it,
and
then they're going into this with the mentality that I'm probably going to buy something.
Yep. We also talked about SEO form optimization and quick conversion tips for forms. We presented an article that was like, make the form smaller, as small as possible physically on the page, but not so small that they're hard to read or whatever. And also, one of the things that we recommend is when we do CAPTCHA, and we don't do it anymore, when we did CAPTCHA, the CAPTCHA was a branding opportunity. So if it was if it was a plumbing company in Houston, then it would, get a plumber.
Yeah, CAPTCHA would say tankless water heater.
Perfect.
Or whatever.
Or at least maybe just tankless, right? So it's a short word, it's an image, you fill that in.
It's a branding opportunity.
We don't even like to do captchas anymore. We prefer what's called a honeypot. If you don't know what that is, it's actually super cool. Go find out what it is. That was podcast 247.
On podcast 248, we talked about DIY online marketing, and which was probably appropriate because we put out a podcast and majority of our listeners are likely DIYers.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the things that stand out about that one is giving your audience the proper content. And so what you have to remember in doing that is understanding who your audience is, right? If your audience is urban, if your audience is laid back, and they're kind of an outgoing group of type of people, then it may be okay to present your content in an urban kind of way. However, if your audience is corporate and white collar and you can't talk slang to them. You have to talk in third person. You have to address them professionally and corporately because that's what they're accustomed to receiving. And so the key here is making sure that however you present your content, that it matches your audience and the people you're going after. Because what you don't want to do is bring the right type of people to the wrong type of site. Because then you have, what the previous tip you said, then you have a success. That's
failure.
A marketing fail.
Yeah.
If you do that. And that was SEO Podcast 248.
All right, so for 249, we talked about scheduling review time for analytics. So if you're going to bother to do internet marketing, certainly from the PPC and SEO perspective, even into the others, but most focused on those, make sure you're scheduling time to review your Google Analytics. And go listen to podcast 249 so you know what you need to be looking at.
Let me say this before we go on, because I've just spent a lot of time in analytics.
Yeah.
This is great.
By the way, when he
data
says a lot of time in analytics, he really means a lot of
like
time.
50% of my work week is looking at numbers. And so there's valuable information in analytics about how long people came to your site, why they were there, what they do when they did, what they do right before they left, what browser they were using, what type of phone they were on. That's valuable information. So get into and if you're using a marketing company and they're not sharing that information with you, you may want to change your resolutions.
Yep. And here's a title that I don't really understand: increasing visibility for SEO matching pages, matching page, and load time. So we talked about load times. Now load times have two impacts. One, it does impact your SERP result. It probably doesn't have the impact that you think it does. It may bump you down up or down a couple places, although that can have a huge impact. As long as you're on top 5, it starts to have a really big impact. The bigger impact is for the customer experience.
The user experience, exactly.
And potentially your non-effective bounce rate. That's what we need, like an effective bounce rate and a non-effective bounce rate. So that was podcast number 249.
On SEO Podcast 250, we talked about turbocharging your website conversions. And I think we're really talking PPC. And so one of the things we talked about was creating separate AdWords campaigns for like mobile ads. The problem is a lot of times due to lack of time or lack of resources or maybe just not really knowing the best practice, people tend to create one campaign and they'll split that campaign up and use it for regular search. They'll use it for mobile. They'll use it for this. They'll use it for that, which is okay, kind of, depending on the size of your business and how aggressive you want to be. To maximize that is in your best interest to do a whole separate campaign just for your mobile ads. Why would you do that? So you can control where they show up, you control when, you can control how much you want to bid on those, and it's a little bit more difficult to do that when they're all in one campaign. But having them separate campaigns, then I can treat this campaign one way and I can treat another campaign a totally separate way. Another way to turbocharge those conversions is to test your CTAs. Chris was just talking about that a few minutes ago, like using buy or subscribe or download. From a pay-per-click perspective, it's a lot easier to test your CTAs because you can run a test for a week or two, put some budget behind it, and look at your analytics and gauge your results, and then rinse and repeat. I like to run 3 or 4 different ads all at the same time. And then let the whole month go by. And then look at my results and see if this ad had, 20 hits and 10 conversions. That's would be a great number, 50%. And then we can make the right decisions that, hey, this ad really converted. Let's create some variations, some spinoffs of the same ad and keep our control ad, and we run our test again. And so that way, every month we're tweaking, we're pruning, and your campaign is getting
You can
better.
learn some pretty amazing stuff if you're running 4, because maybe two really excel, and you can look at what do those two have in common. If they have things in common, then you come up with your third that you throw into the mix. Not get rid of those two, but throw in a third that kind of emphasizes what you think is in common. Maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. But you can know. Yeah.
Yeah, for example, you may want to do one that says call today, another one that says call now, one that says free consultation, and one that says free quote. And look at the data.
So if free works, then free call now. You might start changing changing the content that way. So yeah, good stuff.
That was the SEO Podcast 250.
All right, in SEO Podcast 251. Testing and researching the effects of ads. We were just talking about that. New website SEO production tips. So that had to do with responsive. If you've listened to our podcast for any amount of time, we're not on the responsive bandwagon per se. We do agree, we highly agree, because Google really says that we should agree that responsive is a great way to implement your mobile design. And so what we like to do is design for your workstation, so your typical workstation, and sized all the way down to about a 5-inch device, and that all of those
GS5 or the new iPhone around that size.
All of those should have the same look, and then maybe a little bit higher than maybe the 7-inch. So down to a 7-inch device, and then anything below that should have a separate look. So spend the time, make sure your graphic designer is actually showing you mock-ups for the full version of the website and the mobile version of the website before you pull the trigger on it. And then finally, linking your logo. It's just make sure you link your logo. Yeah,
just the right thing to do.
And that was podcast 251.
On SEO Podcast 252, we talked about tips to avoiding high bounce rates, right? And this is not one of those, what do you just call it, effective bounce rates or non-effective bounce rates. We talked about how users engage in new content and tips to avoid them, and analyzing the click patterns. This is, again, being in analytics. This is how you can analyze a click pattern. A click pattern, what is that? This is the pattern of clicks that people take before they bounce from your site or before they convert. So they clicked on a search result, they landed on your page, they clicked about us, they read something, they scrolled down to the bottom, clicked another link, and then ended up on contact us, where they eventually converted. 5 clicks in that click path. And so your visitors flow will show you that in analytics. So we talked about that. We also talked about ways to avoid those high bounce rates. And I think people bounce because they either got what they wanted really quickly and they bounced, like they called you, which would be great.
That's
or
a productive bounce rate.
Productive bounce. Or B, they didn't see what they wanted at all. They quickly landed, realized they were in the wrong place, and immediately bounced.
Non-productive or ineffective.
Ineffective. Wasted click, and that goes down a path of
hope you didn't pay for it.
Exactly.
Bounce.
So the key is to make sure your site is optimized well, that it reads well, that it's visually appealing, and so that when people do click, that they have a higher likelihood of actually engaging with your content and staying, and not just running because your site sucks. And that would have been SEO Podcast 252.
All right, SEO Podcast 253. Observing click patterns to determine what to improve, right? So that we were just talking about that. Optimizing the payment process. So what are the things that you need to put into, this is a little bit of an e-commerce podcast. What are the things that you need to do in your whole process? Like, let's start making sure, Amazon has perfected the one-click purchase. I think they even tried to patent it, or they did patent it, whatever. Model it as closely as you can. If you can get it as simple as Amazon has it, then you're doing something right. And don't forget the post-purchase process. So they've purchased, they're already engaged with you, your opportunity to upsell them, your opportunity to actually say, hey, you like this product, share that you just purchased it on Facebook and Twitter, and to share this picture on Instagram, pin it, whatever it may be. So
multiple checkout options.
Yeah.
Right? People want to pay with PayPal. They want to use their credit card. They want to use Dwolla. They want to use Google Checkout, Bitcoin. Give people multiple ways to check out. Because eventually you will list one that they're extremely comfortable with, and that may be what's necessary to push them over.
And I like this one, guaranteeing peace of mind, right? So a real strong guarantee can be the difference between you closing a deal and not closing the deal. And it can also push your business to be better. So if you have a really strong guarantee, guess what? Your business better be good enough to meet that
To
guarantee
max that
so that
guarantee.
you're not returning all the revenue that you generate.
Exactly.
And that was SEO Podcast 253.
On SEO Podcast 254, we talked about local media marketing trends, things from like optimizing your shopping carts, which would have been a carryover from the previous podcast, local media marketing trends, and the increase in mobile traffic. And so, starting with the last one, the increase in mobile traffic is key. It's important for all you guys who may be watching or listening to this right now to understand that mobile traffic not only is increasing, it will just continue to increase and continue to go up. Especially, this was the key, I remember this, especially from local businesses that have brick and mortar establishments. Because what companies like Walgreens and Walmart and these people are realizing is that people are on their mobile device and they're searching for products while in store. That's an increase in mobile traffic. And so you want to compensate for that. And the other thing was the local media marketing trends. So if you're a local business, tap into your local media. They can really help you get your ranking up. What does that mean? So like here in Houston, for example, Fox 26, they do these features where you're a specialist, right? And you can go there and they'll interview you, talk about your product and how you can help others with it. That is great video content that you can go on your site. More importantly, Fox will link out to your site from theirs, and there's a great inbound link from a high quality site with valuable content relevant to you. So use your local marketing thing. Maybe you're having an event like a Christmas party for all your favorite clients or grand opening or whatever it is. Submit that to your local media. Why? Because it ends up on their calendar, it ends up with a link to your site, it ends up on their publications. And those are great ways to get links using your local media. And that was SEO Podcast 254.
All right, SEO Podcast 255. Make sure to include social ads in your marketing strategy. All right, so the company policy right now, new website, going into an internet marketing campaign, they've got Google retargeting cookies layer in their webpage and Facebook cookie layer so that they can get remarketed.
Whether they're going to do it or not.
They may never do it. And if they don't, it's not because we're not encouraging them. So make sure that you include that in your strategy. Checking your local homepage for auditing. So I don't know what that means. But we're going to go with merging homepages. That's got to be related to 301 redirects. So remember that Google thinks ewebstyle.com is different from ewebstyle.com/index.php, which is different than www.ewebstyle.com/index.php, which is also different from www.ewebstyle.com. Those are 4 different pages. If 1/4 of all your inbound links go to each of those pages, you don't have a page
you divided your link juice by 4.
By 4. So make sure that you do proper 301 redirects to accomplish that. And that's pretty easy to do, pretty easy to check. And that was Podcast 255.
On SEO Podcast 256, we talked about preventing your campaign from failing. And the easiest way to prevent your campaign from failing is to monitor it. It's to tweak it. You can't set it and forget it. You have to watch it. You have to add content. You have to check your ads. You have to make sure your site's loading fast and do all the things. We talked about optimizing images, data tracking, and SEO. And this is, again, back into your analytics, right? You want to make sure that people aren't falling off in certain places. Maybe analytics is reporting that people drop off right at your checkout page. Why is that? If you're not looking at your analytics, then you don't know that. But if you are, then you can figure out why they're dropping off and you can fix it so your campaign doesn't fail. We also talked about optimizing images. And I think the rule of thumb was here, go ahead and optimize them prior to uploading them. Right? WordPress does a great job of crunching your images and making them useful. At the end of the day, it was still a pretty big image that you uploaded and they had to crunch. So instead, go ahead and resize it. Make sure to the smallest possible size you can get that doesn't lose your clarity and the sharpness of the image. Right. Then upload it. And not only upload it, but we're talking optimizing images. Change the file name to my top keyword.jpg. Right? Yep. Then upload it. And then give it an alt tag, my top keyword. Give it a title, my top keyword. Put it on a page, that's my top keyword. And now that image is fully optimized. And that was SEO Podcast 256.
All right, the last podcast of the year that we're going to be covering is Podcast 257. So this is like the last section of the last podcast for 2014. All right, so here we go. Make sure your content is relevant. So we talk about this year we talked about this
Content
whole
a lot, yeah.
Make sure that your content is in the language or the lingo or however you want to say it of the people that you're trying to drive, of the customers you're trying to drive to that website.
Not the inside people.
Right. So you may be a bunch of engineers. One of the things that's often hard for us to explain to an engineering company that leases equipment is that the people who deal with you probably don't even use the equipment that you lease.
Exactly.
Right? You lease a tractor or a crane. The person who's in charge of procuring it is the procurement officer. That what's going to appeal to them on the website is not the same thing that's going to appeal to the actual construction workers, the general contractor or whatever. So make sure that you're speaking to the right people. That's the easy tips for great calls to action, and we're going to follow this straight up with vocabulary tips. Strong command verbs to start your CTA process. We've talked about this in like the last 3 podcasts, which is, in your add a CTA. The SERP is the first opportunity for SEVO, search engine visitor optimization. So make sure that you're taking full advantage of it. If it's a PPC ad and you're going to drive people to buy, like we just said earlier, it may save you money if you tell them that
you're going to buy when you get here.
Right? So, I'm not ready to buy, so let me skip. And guess what? When they're ready to buy, I was like, where's that guy who I was going to buy from? Or they're going to subscribe or just get information. They know what to expect when they get to the next page. It's always better when they know what they're going to expect.
One of the things you want to do, and that's from a PPC perspective, from an organic perspective, take advantage of putting call to actions in your meta description.
Absolutely.
So you have one line that just briefly summarizes this page, which should be unique to that page. Better not be out there having duplicate meta descriptions.
Yeah.
That's a no-no. So come up with the unique meta description for that page and close it out with, if you're interested in this, call us today with the phone number. Why would you do that? Because that meta description and that phone number will show up in these search results. You could very well get a conversion without getting a click.
So here's a trivia question. What's better than a productive bounce?
I know.
When they call from your SERP.
When they call without clicking.
They haven't even clicked to your website. They're like, that's it. That's what I need. And they call. Craig, that's what you should be shooting for. In fact, get good organic. Get good local first probably, and make sure your phone number is nice and prominent so that they can get there both in organic and local, and also do pay-per-click. Make sure it's there too. Yeah. So that was our 2014 Part 2 Year in Review.
Man, hold up.
That was some good stuff. Now we've got, I think we got a little bit of what, right?
Yeah, we got a little what news. I got some what news and some blank stare actually.
All right, so which one do we want to do
first? We'll do what first. What? Yeah, so this is what goes to Instagram. Remember, we already reported that Instagram had outgrown Twitter.
Right, yeah.
So they just released some new numbers. Instagram is now worth $35 billion.
$35 billion. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
That is.
For filters and photos. I'm just saying.
Yeah, filters and
filters and photos.
That's it.
And so in our blank stare, give them a blank stare.
Yeah,
that was a good blank stare. That was well deserved.
That's actually like a, are you effing kidding me?
Yeah, this blank stare goes to Sony.
I
was actually kind of looking forward to the movie because I like the actor. You know what I'm saying? The interview, they pulled the movie, the interview that was really about dealing with North Korea and everything going on over there because of, this not credible threats from North Korea.
Yeah.
And the president even, President Obama got on, he said, Sony, y'all shouldn't have done that. This is not how America is. And I totally agree, Sony. You should not have pulled it because of these threats they made. If anything, we should have celebrated because we're Americans. And that's what we do. And
let's go watch a movie and die together. That's what we do.
But we definitely shouldn't be running.
Wait. Let's go watch a movie, mock some other country and how they work, and then die together.
For the nation. But truthfully though, that's not how America is. We don't run, we don't hide, we don't, I think if it was a real threat, government would have taken action.
And I think fundamentally, okay, so Sony, you're pulling it because maybe some people could die, right? And you're probably worried, as a company, you're worried about the PR you would get. There is a small minority that would be like, oh, Sony should have pulled it, right? most of people would just be pissed at the Koreans.
Exactly.
Right? It's like, okay, those dudes are trying to stifle our free speech.
Well, I like what President said, we get threats all the time. We don't stop going to football games. We don't stop doing events. We don't stop spending time with our family. We don't stop traveling. We won't stop catching flights. We do what we got to do. And, and that was one of those situations.
Remember, Sony is not an American-owned company, too, so the powers that be may not be American. Who knows who make that decision. So anyway, this has been podcast number 261, the last podcast of 2014. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy everything else that I don't even know about. Enjoy the next 2
time
weeks.
with your family. Enjoy it with your friends. Enjoy the peace. We will be out of the office for we'll get a little break. We're going to enjoy that.
Yep.
We encourage you to do the same.
And we'll pick this up second week in the new year, back with the SEO podcast, Unknown Secrets of Internet Marketing. And to wrap this podcast up, we of course have to go through a little bit of information, and that is, it's got to work here. So, if you're interested in growing your business using the largest, simplest marketing tool on the planet, the Internet, call eWebstyle for increased revenue in your business. Our phone number is 713-592-6724. We will be happy to help you.
Put that up here.
That's a good idea, yeah. If you have a referral, send them to us. They pay their bill. We will pay you. And this was filmed live at 5999 West 34th Street in Houston, Texas. Again, you guys have made us the most popular internet marketing podcast on iTunes.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great
Appreciate
new year. Until the next podcast, I'm Chris Burris.
Charles Lewis.
Bye-bye for now.
All right. Whoop, whoop.